First of all, please let me apologise if my eyes are really red in this video. My allergies are slowly murdering me, so I'm having a great time. Hello and welcome back to whatever this is. Money is scary, but you know what's scarier? The US visa system. But hopefully as someone who has been through it, I can make it a little bit less scary and mysterious, hence why I'm making this video. This is a video that I think would have been very useful for me when I was first looking at moving to the US, and I think there's always more room for people to talk about their experiences with something like this. Some of the costs will be applicable to all international students, some just to a handful, and some probably just for me, really. But I'll put them up on the screen at the end, and so you can pick and choose which costs you think will be applicable to your situation. You can mix and match. It's just hours of fun for the whole family. Some little disclaimers before I go on. I was going through this at a time when people still cared about COVID, so there are COVID-related costs in this video. Hopefully by the time that you're going through this process, these will no longer be the sort of things that you need to worry about, but you know, with the way things are going, I thought it would be a good idea to include them. There are definitely slightly cheaper ways that I could have done some things, but I really needed this process to be as easy as possible for me, so I didn't mind too much spending an extra 30 quid here and there just to make my life a little bit easier. I am also coming to this from a UK perspective, a UK citizen moving to the US to be a student. So although a lot of fees and things will be applicable, you may have extra ones for your country, you might not have so much. A lot of it's still going to apply, but just bear that in mind. And with that, all of my costs are going to be in pounds in this video. If any were converted from dollars, then they are correct at time of writing it down on my spreadsheet, rather than correct at time of filming, so make sure you're just checking exactly how much those things cost at the time you are applying. So, how much did it cost for me to become an international PhD student from the UK in the US? Let's find out. So the first expense I had was actually applying to university. It would have been taking the GRE, but I applied to universities that no longer require the GRE. This is the General Readiness for Education exam, and a lot of US institutions still require it for graduate study. But just make sure you double check before you go applying whether the university you're applying to requires it. There is an additional fee for the GRE, which is £128.73 to take it in the UK, so bear that in mind. That's not one of my costs, but it could be one of yours. But yes, applying to university in the US costs money. It's not like in the UK where it's free to apply for postgraduate education, and it's not even like in the UK at undergrad where you pay around 30 quid to apply to a few universities in one go. No, you have to pay for every single application in the US, hence why I only did 2, because I was a little bit worried about wasting all that money and potentially getting rejected by all of the universities I applied to, which didn't happen, thankfully. There are a pretty wide range of fees, so make sure you're looking up how much the university you want to apply to costs. In my case, the 2 universities I applied to cost £75 and £53 respectively, so we have our first cost to go in our cost counter tally total thing, which I'm going to put here. So there are 2 main paid parts for the visa when you travel on an F1 visa, the SEVIS and the interview. You pay to do the SEVIS, or Student Exchange Visa Programme, paperwork thing first. It just involves filling out a very, 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 very long form, which is on a website that crashes, well, at least I found that it crashed every few minutes, which I have a suspicion is actually part of the process to make sure that you really, really want this visa. If you can get through that form, then you want this. Anyway, the SEVIS cost a painful £251.35. After that's all good, it's time to schedule your interview at the embassy. Yes, that is correct. You have to go there in person to the US Embassy in London and interview with a person or several people. I was perhaps naively unaware of this fact when I first started applying, but this costs an additional £126.40. Now, I was lucky, and at the time I was living within walking distance of the US Embassy, and so I could just walk on down there in my posh interview clothes and head on into the building. But you might need to factor in additional costs in order to get to London, say 20, 30, 40 quid more maybe for the bus or the train to London, and then whatever transport within London. So that's another thing just to bear in mind that isn't in my costs. One condition of my going to the US to university was that I had to get several more vaccinations. I am extremely scared of needles. 2021 was a really bad year for me. In the UK, required vaccinations are free. However, hepatitis B is not one of our required vaccinations, or at least it wasn't when I was a kid, and so I had to pay to get it. A course of hepatitis B is 3 vaccines, which at my GP at least cost £40 a pop, so not cheap really. Full disclosure, I could have opted out of this requirement, but I thought it would be useful to have these vaccinations, so I got them. I also needed a tetanus booster, which was weirdly difficult to convince the nurse to give me. This was actually the one thing that I forgot to write down at the time, but I believe it was a tenner, so not too bad. In order to be allowed to be a student at a US university, I have to have health insurance, which is fair enough. You don't really want to be in the US without it. I'm also lucky that I'm on a graduate assistantship, which means that I teach or do extra research, and in exchange they fund my tuition, and I also get a stipend to live off, and I get things like health insurance mostly covered. Because my health insurance is almost all covered by the university, I only had to pay £248 for the year. Which, as someone coming from a country where healthcare is free, is absolutely scandalous, but it's better than it could have been by a long, long way. I also elected to get the dental insurance add-on, which, as someone who had just taken up roller skating and also had just seen a roller skating YouTuber they watch fall over and absolutely smash her teeth in, leading to me being very stressed about having dental insurance. I was fortunately, as of recording, I have not smashed my teeth in, but I do feel a lot more comfortable being here with dental insurance, which altogether cost £297.65. So, but I think I get one free checkup included in that. When I got there, I thought it would be nice to have somewhere to live. Originally, I was looking at getting a place by myself, but I just found it all too much to deal with doing all of that completely by myself from abroad. And there's also the worry about moving into a place that neither you nor anyone else has ever seen before, which is a bit of a risk. But it did cost me a £5 on international calls, an add-on that I got for my phone plan to find that out. What I did end up going for instead was moving into a flat with 2 roommates who were looking for a third person, which worked out really well, and it's very nice to have friendly people to hang out with, especially in your first year of university. I should say that I'm not going to talk rent exactly because it's going to vary so much, even within one place, depending on what kind of accommodation you go for. But I did want to say that at least here in Virginia, I don't know if it varies by state because the US is vast, but at least here you have to pay to even apply to the property, which is stressful. But that was £40 in my case. I have seen some places say that this fee is refundable, and I have come to the conclusion that I do not know enough about it to be an authority on the fact. When they did accept me, I then had to pay a roommate change fee, which was £110, and in my experience, a very small deposit of £278. And obviously this is going to vary, again, drastically, depending on where you are, what kind of accommodation you're living in. You know this. Moving on. Cool, so I did all of that. Time to travel. I had an absolute nightmare with flights. My flight was cancelled twice, which was very irritating because I'd paid a little bit extra for my flight, which I wanted to get direct to Washington, DC, where I was meeting a friend who would then take me on further. And my first flight was cancelled. Fine, whatever. I could still get a direct flight to DC. By the second cancellation, all of the direct flights were gone, so I was paying a higher fee for a flight that I had to change on, which was not ideal. I really didn't want to change, and I was forced into it, and I'm still mad about it. This was probably obviously my biggest expense or biggest single expense in moving. It cost me £642.99, bearing in mind that prices are even more inflated because you're likely to be moving in the summer if you're starting in the autumn term. So prices are jacked up. Even in COVID times, prices were higher in July than they were any other time of the year. With my flight, I also splashed out on an extra suitcase so I could bring a bit more stuff. There's really not that much room or not that much weight allowance that you can have with just your regular carry-on in a suitcase. So I thought that 2 suitcases really was the way to go, and I stand by it. This cost me £65 for another suitcase. And my parents also very kindly shipped me a box of stuff, which is unfortunately something I don't have an exact figure for. With my estimations I did when I was looking at shipping myself an additional box, I'm going to estimate that it was another £65, and my parents can just agree with me, even if I'm way off. Thank you very much for that. I love my books and my stuff. Thank you. Now, one expense I should not have paid was an extortionate $5 or £3.12 to use a luggage cart at JFK Airport. In my defence, I did not know how far away I would have to take my luggage from one flight to get onto my change. Turns out it was just around the corner from the luggage cart, so I will die mad about that. And before I went, I made sure to get travel insurance. I guess I was feeling optimistic because I got annual travel insurance. I don't really know why, but I did. Anyway, try to guess how many pre-existing conditions I have from my quote of £87.91 by comparing it to yours. Because I was travelling in the time of COVID, I also had to fork out for a fit-to-fly COVID test. The cheapest one that I felt was going to be reliable, so not the cheapest one overall, was £80. I love that. But I made it! Hooray! Now, I'm not going to include costs or money that I spent on like personal belongings that I wasn't able to bring with me, like bedding and stuff. I gestured down because I'm filming this on my bed. But I do have a few more costs of things that pretty much everyone will need to do, such as opening a bank account. Now, opening a bank account itself was free. It's more the things around it that I needed to do. So to open a bank account, that I needed to have a phone number, which was annoying because I didn't really want to set up like a contract phone without having a bank account to direct debit into it. So I bought the cheapest burner phone that I could find, which was £50, because phones are expensive in America. Once I did that, and once I had my bank account set up, I then needed to transfer my money from the UK to the US, which had a £25 transaction fee. Now, I don't think I'll include this one in the total at the end because it's one of those that's going to vary so much with the university, etc, etc. But as it is one of those things that I need to pay to remain here as a student and is a very common thing in America, I wanted to mention it, and that is student fees. So these are the comprehensive fees that I pay every semester. They come up to around £1,000 a semester, so £2,000 a year because I'm enrolled for 2 semesters a year. And they cover things like sports facilities, healthcare fees, public transport, library. Am I salty about them? Absolutely. So just be aware that those fees do exist. In some places they're higher, in some places they're a lot lower or covered by graduate teaching assistantships and that sort of thing. And that's that. So the grand total of how much it cost me to move from the UK to the US is, drumroll please, £2,583.42. Ouch! Yikes! Yeah. I am extremely fortunate that I have been working several good jobs for the year prior and had saved up enough to cover that. There are many reasons I think it's a good idea to take a year out from undergrad or master's study before going into further study, and this is one of them, that you can have a little bit of money saved up, hopefully, by working. Hopefully this look into my finances has been helpful for you if you are going through this process yourself or looking or thinking about going through it. If you're just sort of here, then I hope this was interesting for you and that you got something out of it, perhaps. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, though I can only really talk from personal experience on this one. And let me know what kind of videos you would like to see. I've got some cool travel stuff coming up in the next few weeks with field work and museum visits. I'm very excited. So hopefully I'll have some footage to share of that with you guys when I come back. But that won't be until July, I'm afraid. So until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, that was a good snap. That was a good snap.